So, Brad, thank you so much for being here. Brad is actually a friend of Fausto's. You guys loved Fausto's episode a few months ago. He's like, oh my God, stop mentioning this. Every time I talk to him, I'm like, Fausto, Fausto, Fausto. You can very highly recommend it by Fausto, who had a great episode. And so I'm very happy to have you here today. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So where are you currently? You're on the East Coast.
I'm in Canada. So I live about 45 minutes from Toronto.
Okay. So I'm a dumb American. That is on the East Coast of Canada.
East Coast, yeah. Southern Ontario. Yeah, right by Michigan.
So I'm not that much of a dumb American, but I'm not totally sure where it is. Because are you still banned from the United States?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
No. Okay, because I heard you say that, and I thought that it would turn out to be that you weren't anymore, but you are. Okay, so let's just start from the beginning, because my listeners are going to be like, wait, what? Okay, so how do you go from nice kid in Canada to banned from America? Let's get started.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of years in between there.
I know.
No, I mean, a big part of it is obviously a addiction podcast, so that's definitely going to be part of the story. But I mean, there was a lot of things. I was born in Canada. I was born here in Ontario. Actually, same town I live in now. Everything's kind of went full circle. It's really, really strange how that happens. And my mom wanted to be a nurse, and there was a lot of nursing jobs in the U.S. at the time. So we moved down. My mom had twins at 16, and my brother and I, we moved down to Texas. We moved to Waco, Texas. My mom got a job there at a hospital, and I was about 6-7 years old. So we went from having the support of my grandparents, my grandmother really raising us, looking after us while mom went to school and went to college and all that type of stuff, to now mom was being single parent, looking after 2 kids in a whole different country, starting a new job and everything. So it was interesting, right? So that's kind of how I ended up in the US anyway.
So you're a twin. You're the twins that she had at 16.
Yeah.
Okay. And where's your dad? Is he in the picture at all?
No, not really, no.
Okay.
I mean, he's around, but they were
Okay.
16 and 17. I don't know that he wanted to, do or knew what to do at that point, so.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you guys moved to Texas, and she's going to nursing school, or she's working as a nurse. And did you do most of your growing up in Texas then? How long were you there?
Yeah. I don't know the exact amount of time, but I was there for a bit. And then most of my growing up, grade 5, we moved to North Carolina. So that was really probably where I did from grade 5 to, high school, and then a couple years of college too, all in North Carolina.
Okay. And then what did those years look like for you in terms of when we start getting introduced to alcohol, substances, etc.?
Yeah. Well, the thing that people find interesting about my story is I went to rehab before I even got into doing substances. So I had problems with suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety. I'd see a psychiatrist, psychologist, and different interventions. I mean, you name the intervention, and I've been involved with the learning centers, this, that, everything else. My parents spent boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of cash. And when I was growing up, my mom also met my stepdad, and they got married. And I have a younger brother now too. No, I have for a while. He's 21, but.
So what age were you when you first started having suicidal thoughts?
I'd always felt really depressed and anxious. Didn't really put a thought, be able to put a finger to it. But probably when I was 13, 15, I would just think things would be better without me. I never had any plans at that point about what I was going to do, but I felt so hopeless. I felt really completely different from the rest of the world. So I struggled with that long before I ever picked up drugs or anything.
That was my question. So that was before you ever even started drinking or using. You already felt that way. And that's interesting to me, because I think that addiction is a set of characteristics that are present. I mean, most people think this, that are present before the drug or alcohol are even present, and that's your evidence of that, obviously, that already feeling different and, other than. And so did you go, when you went to rehab, was it a mental health facility, or was it a substance abuse, and that was the best place for you to go at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was for everything. Really, it was behavioral. Okay. It was for people with addiction. This sort of center was the end of the road for any adolescent, basically. My parents signed me over to this facility. You're locked down. You can't leave. So you're locked down. They would restrain you, restraint beds, straitjackets, that type of place. So it wasn't, I was probably, as far as behavior wise, I was probably one of the more well-behaved. A lot of the other residents there were extremely misbehaved. A lot of people had choice between jail and there, and a lot of people would pick jail. So they would come there for 2 weeks. They would say, forget about this. But I was right before that, I was in the psych ward, and I had like this second thoughts the second time. I'd been in a psych ward before, and this was the second time. And my parents were trying to figure out what to do with me. Everything was going sideways. I had already been arrested too and had some charges for break and enter misdemeanors when I was 16. And my parents had to go through that, spend a bunch of money on a lawyer and crazy stuff at 16, like just bananas. And I wasn't really changing my behaviors. I was doing the same stuff. I was not following rules at home. I was not doing well in school. I never did well in school, but I was doing well then. I was skipping class. I was on probation. So the probation officer I had, she was a real hard ass. And they would drug test me. I never even did drugs. So that wasn't a big deal. But one time I couldn't pee, right? Because people watch you. Like a 45-year-old man watches you have a pee right next to you. Like breathe. The guy's breath. I just remember his breath was so bad. And his breathing on me. And whatever it was, what it was. But I was like, I can't even go pee right now. And we had to go back to court and everything for this, for her, this drug test. I had to sign this paper that it was basically positive. And I'm like, I don't even do that stuff. And that might have been one of the things that kind of, looking back, that probably was one of the things. Well, there were two things why I didn't get involved with drugs and alcohol. I wasn't cool because I didn't know people. And my folks never really drank. My folks never really drank. I mean, they did drink. I never saw them drink. I never saw them drunk. And the second was probably that probation officer. But I was on Adderall too. I took Adderall for ADHD. And when I stopped taking the Adderall was kind of when my ability to follow any rules just went out the window. I just couldn't do it. But taking the Adderall, I just felt like a zombie. I didn't have a personality. Wasn't able to connect with people. I didn't have any highs or any lows. I just literally was just like bleh, all day. And then one day I missed the dose of the Adderall, and I discovered maybe some personality in my life. But it was like the weirdest thing. I hated it, but I had friends in high school that would want to buy it. And I'm like, why do you guys want to freaking buy Adderall? But then I understood. That's when I understood I actually had ADHD. Everybody says like, oh, I have ADD or ADHD and this, and they want to buy Adderall. I said, dude, if you actually had it, I don't know if you'd want to buy Adderall, because when I take that, I feel completely terrible. I don't know what, you know what I mean? But for them, they loved it. They were like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. But yeah, so I went to the psych ward. I was there. The first time I went, I was just there for 3 days, whatever. Slap on the wrist, try to, get your life together and do better. The second time, though, it was like 7-8 days in, and my parents had these people sent this guy from this rehab center. And he's like, oh, I got this. We've got this. I'm from this rehab, and it's like 90 minutes from your place, and you come for 3 months. We live in a cabin. It's beautiful. Like, would you be interested in coming to this program? And I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to any stupid programs. My friends were so important, and this was so important. And, when you're a teenager, you can only see past Friday night. You can only see till Friday night. So I turned that down. And then that's when the next day, this private security company my parents hired came to the hospital. And then they picked me up and brought me to this other place called Peninsula Village. And I was there for 12 months.
Shit.
Yeah.
Was it one of those, I've heard about these, I don't know if they even do them anymore. Did they come get you early in the morning or in the middle of the night?
Yeah, in the morning. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know they used to get people, they would come get you to take you to a wilderness program, and they would come in the middle of the night to drag you out of so they sent a team to get you, but from the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How old were you?
17.
17. Okay. So, and then they take you to Peninsula. Is it still open, the one that you went to?
No, I think it's another name. There's so many lawsuits, I think, for the other name,
right.
But they've changed the names. Yeah.
Okay. And then you go there for 12 months. Did you stay the whole 12 months?
Yeah. Yeah. They don't give you a discharge date. So basically you discharge when the work is done. So some people could be 5-6 months. Some people could be 12, 15, 16 months. Just depends when they feel like, you're ready. And probably another part of it's probably when your insurance starts to wonder, what's with the bill, right? Depends what kind of insurance I guess you might have, that's probably going to impact it, because it's expensive. A lot of money for a residential program.
Totally. So what did the work look like while you were there? What did it look like to try to rehab a 17-year-old kid?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of structure, discipline, consequences. We used to have physical consequences for stuff. If you were swearing, if you were looking at female residents, you'd have to do push-ups, you'd have to write papers, you'd have to do sit-ups. There was a consequence for anything and everything. there would be a consequence for, and then we started out first in the special treatment unit. So that was in the basement of the cafeteria. The main building is a cafeteria, and in the basement, then there's chicken wire on the windows, big steel door, 3 staff. The staff had buzzers around their neck. If there was a restraint, they'd press this little button. It would send sirens throughout the whole campus. More people would come. It's craziness.
This is like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but for like teenagers. Were you scared? How did you feel emotionally being there?
No, I wasn't scared. I mean, I was angry probably more than anything that my parents had like just kind of turned their back. I felt like at the time they just kind of turned their back on me, and in that they signed me up for something they didn't understand.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. They were like, we did a tour of the place. I'm like, trust me, guys, this shit was crazy. I mean, it was crazy, but you know, the craziest thing with humans is that you can adapt to anything. So like, even if you see, you know, like even when people see like people in jail for this long or that long, or this situation or circumstance, like you just adapt to it. As humans just do that by nature. You know, with time, you'll get used to any environment that you're a part of. I mean, you're not saying you're going to enjoy it or like it, but you'll figure out how to do it. So we did the special treatment unit for 4 months. And then you transition to a cabin program. So then I switched over to the cabin program. That was like the wilderness aspect of things. But they had to break you down first so you wouldn't just run away, or else people would just run away right when they got out. Like, and people did try to run away all the time. But yeah, and then you stayed there for another 8 months, working on stuff, right? You're building confidence, self-esteem. You're falling into a structure. I had a family therapist, so I'm working on the relationship with my parents. I'm working with a psychiatrist. We're working with the counselors. We're working on accountability. We're working on basically the fundamentals of being a productive member of society, and kind of up into that point. Well, I mean, everybody else, I don't know. I can't speak for all of them, but for me anyway, I wasn't doing that. I didn't have any respect, and I was really just headed in the wrong direction. So the idea of the program was to kind of give you a fresh start. And it did that. I got out of the program. I graduated high school, which I never would have done if I didn't go to this program. I got into college actually too. And then like a couple months after I left the program, I got my own apartment. I got my first car. I was in college. I got my first full-time job. I was seeing my therapist. I was going to my groups. I was doing everything I needed to do. And then I slowly had a better idea that I had everything figured out. And this kind of when drugs comes into the picture, I had my own place there and had some buddies over, right? Everybody was like drinking beer and stuff. I started drinking a little bit. It was never really a problem at first. And then a buddy of mine, were playing cards one night. We're playing poker, and he pulls out this pill bottle, and I said, dude, if you have a headache, we can put your chips aside. Yeah, he's, oh no, this is the Percocets or whatever. And I'm like, oh, what the heck's that all about? I was naive. I had no idea what this stuff was. I had no idea at all. And I gave him $5. I took one of the Percocets, and I just felt like $1 million. And I'd felt like that before because all the work I did at the treatment program, I felt really good about myself, and I was in a good spot. But that was a year worth of work. I mean, this only cost $5. And we're in the same, we're there, right? Like we're there. Yeah. Short-lived, but I felt good, and that's kind of when that whole obsession sparked.
What was your twin brother's trajectory at this time? Did he finish high school where you had been? Like, were you guys completely different? Okay, so he was fine.
Yeah, he was good, yeah.
Okay, and where did you go to college?
To Wake Tech Community College.
Okay, that's near Wake Forest, I'm assuming.
No, it's near Raleigh.
Okay. All right. Okay. I know a little bit about North Carolina. I'm from Georgia. So I'm like kind of trying to piece it together a little bit. Okay. So you take a Percocet for the first time. And I love what you just said. It can get you there. Like the work that you did at the program and the way that it made you feel, it does it like that. It's so much faster. So then what is the trajectory from there after that first Percocet? Like how often does it start entering your life? What do you start doing?
Yeah, well, I had a friend of a friend who I started to research how you're going to get more of this stuff, right? So I knew about surgeries. I figured out, surgeries. It's crazy thinking back how naive I've had no friggin' idea of this stuff. But I figured that out. So I got a hold of him. I said, hey, is there any, stuff around and whatever? Yeah, mom had all this stuff and there's a whole shoebox of stuff. All right, cool. I'll take it, So I ended up with a whole shoebox. I don't know, thousands of these pills. And I just started taking them. Taking them every day. I was in school and, I was feeling good. I was flying high. I mean, I was just messed up all the time. But like within reason, I didn't eat a whole bottle at first. It was like, if the bottle said take one, I might have pushed it to 2. But I was still, Like I wanted to follow the recommendations on the bottle for a little bit. But after I did that every day, every second I was awake, I probably had one of these things in me for 30 days. And after 30 days, they ran out, and I was thinking, well, that was fun. We'll get back at it. We'll get, back to life now and move on with things. And then I started to feel really bad after not taking them. I have no idea, right? This is my first go at everything. I call my buddy, though. I had this one buddy because I was dabbling a little bit in cocaine too. I like to get a little cocaine, a little upper, a little downer type deal. It was fun. And I talked to my buddy. He said, "Oh, that's withdrawal." I said, "Withdraw from what? What are you talking about?" So he kind of broke it down for me real quick. And I said, "Well, what do we do? What do I do, man?" And he's like, "Well, you got to get more." I said, "Get more?" I said, "They don't have any more." In my mind at this time, I thought the only way to get these was through a doctor, or somebody who did get them from a doctor, these pills. And then I quickly found out that that's it's roundabout kind of true, but there's a lot of people out there who sell this stuff who get prescriptions and don't take it and sell it. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of when I was off to the races. Like, how are we gonna? And now I'm gonna have to try to balance like getting the drugs and going to school and working this job, this relationship I was in, this place, and I mean, all while keeping this a big secret, right?
Right.
No.
That is so similar to the way that I started. I also didn't know that you got sick from opiates. I really didn't know. And when I was first doing it, I was started with heroin, but the guy I was dating was doing it. I was only doing like a little tiny bit, and I was like doing great. Like, I teach fitness, and I was teaching fitness then. And I was coming up with all these like routines. I teach bar, which is like similar to ballet. I was like choreographing stuff all night. I felt good. I was super functional. I was like higher functioning for a little while. And then, of course, ultimately it all comes crashing down. Also, I have a totally random question for you. What is your astrological sign?
Leo?
What is a Leo? Okay. All right. I've never asked anybody that on the show ever, but you have like the kindest, most like gentle energy. And it reminds me of my brother, who's a Virgo. And so all of a sudden I was wondering if you had the same birthday as my brother, because it's like my brother Danny has like just the kindest, nicest way that he speaks. And you're so much like him, and it's just making me think of him. But anyways, okay. So I've never interrupted the show in my life to ask somebody their fucking astrological sign. I'm not even like one of those girls. I don't know that much about it, but okay. So not like there's one of those girls. Now I feel kind of bad if you're an astrology person. I'm kind of into it. I just don't know that much about it. So anyways, so you start buying pills illegally. And also, was it Percocet or Oxy in the shoebox? Do you even know? It was just some sort of...
No, this was all just like Percocet 10s and,
and Vicodins and stuff like that.
And Valiums and whatever else I could...
Okay.
I used to have this little pill identifier. They used to have this little Google. I remember I used to, oh man.
They still do.
They still have that? Yeah. And then you could find the markings and stuff. I'm like, oh God, I forgot completely about that till now. But
yes.
I used to look up that, we'd go to places and parties and rummage through stuff and check out, oh gosh, look at all this crap, but.
Right. So do you start buying pills illegally, or did you jump to something? What did you start buying illegally first?
Well, yeah, I just started buying pills first. Yeah.
Okay.
I started buying pills first, and I mean, it's a fortune, right? It was a fortune. It was a ton of money that I didn't have because the tolerance just builds. Anybody who's been into it, the stories are the exact same. The tolerance builds, and what once was enough. I mean, that first pill I took, I was probably high as a kite for 6 hours. And then a month later, that one pill, might have only got me like that for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, So then if you go 60 days down the road, you have to have a ton more. And it was really expensive. And then the risk taking stuff too. I was, when I was 18, I was already slowly into this. I got caught for breaking into a car. A little bit of a story to it. I learned some hard lessons with this one.
I want the story.
Guilty by association. Now, this is from a song. I don't know if it's from a Linkin Park song or somewhere. I've heard this expression before. So, a buddy of mine, I mean, this is intentionally what we were doing. I'm not trying to play victim at all. Like, I was in on this 100%. We were checking door handles, we used to call it. And he was up checking a car door handle, and I was like the lookout guy, like 4 feet behind him. And he goes to open up this door handle, and all I remember is inside the car, the light turned on. And then out of that was my right eye. Out of my left eye, I see this guy walking his dog with a flashlight. It's 3-4 in the morning. And I'm like, oh shit, no one's supposed to be out. And the guy's like, hey, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, oh man, okay, no problem. We'll just run off. And everything will be good. And then quickly out of my other right eye, I see 2 cruisers, 2 cop cars coming up the neighborhood with their lights on. And it was like the Challenger, not the Challengers. Is it the Chargers? Did they use the Chargers still? Yeah.
I think so. In southern towns, I've never seen one out here in California, but I think in southern towns, they still use a Charger. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I seen the Chargers and I was like, oh man, now we're busted. So whatever, we go on the run, we're running. And eventually we get caught. Like I had this girlfriend I was dating at the time. I was like, we didn't have cell phones, I don't think at the time. So I had to go to a pool. Every neighborhood would have a pool. And at the pool, they would have a phone in case emergency at the pool. So I get the phone there and I called her. Maybe we left our phones in the car. I don't know. But I called her and I was like, you got to come pick us up. So we're like almost out of this little town. Like this is a 1-light town. There's 2 roads in, 2 ways out. And we're like, almost out of it, and then the cops catch us. So I was already convicted felon from that. I got convicted with a felony break and enter of a motor vehicle. At 18, I had to provide DNA sample. I was back in jail for a little bit. I already had the other convictions too. So yeah, and then this is sort of the behavior, right? This is the stuff that.
So when you say we went you literally took off running.
Yeah.
Did the cops jump out of the car and chase you on foot? They did not. Okay,
no,
so you ran and ran and ran until you saw a neighborhood pool.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like piece this together. Okay, so you and your friend actually kind of get away, but then they catch up to you.
Yeah, we thought for sure we were getting away with this one. But that's the thing. But my life is like I literally get caught, not for everything I've done, but I just get caught for stuff,
Yeah.
So there was that. Okay. I want to know another funny, weird story. Is that they wanted me to go to prison for a year for that. And I had this girlfriend. See, everybody in my life, another big part too, is that everybody in my life enabled my behavior. And like, I know it's enabling now. At the time, I was like, they're helping me. But like this girlfriend's parents pay for lawyer. This girlfriend's parents get me car. This girlfriend's parents give me place to stay. My folks, until they ran out of helping, they were helping a lot. Not all of it was enabling, but I mean, a lot of stuff kept it going. If I would have kind of bottomed out sooner, maybe it would have been different. It's hard to say. So they wanted me to go to prison for a year for this at 18. And this lawyer I hired, she ended up kind of pulling some strings. And I told them that I was stealing stuff to pay off credit card debt. And they believed it. And so I got put on felony probation. And when I got put on felony probation, they didn't even drug test.
Oh.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? But when I was 16, I had to do the pee in the cup.
Yeah.
Weird,
okay.
eh?
Okay. Because if it had been a drug thing that you were paying off, then drug tests would have been part of your probation. But since it ostensibly wasn't, you didn't have to test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird.
Okay,
but
I
thought for sure they would have been like, that's BS. Like, come on.
Right.
But yeah. It worked out. And that probation officer I had, she was a lot nicer, but the problem with her was I couldn't afford the fee. I think it was $70 a month you had to pay, and I could never afford the fee on time because I was getting high all the time. So she would call me and she'd be like, and it was so stressful, She'd call me and be like, you have 24 hours to come up with the $70 or you're in jail for, 6 weeks. And I'm like, fuck. I'm you just feel like such a bum at that point. I did anyway.
Totally.
What a loser, what a loser. And this is how you're living your life. And so that was rough. So, after that, I was buying pills and doing cocaine. I was drinking too. We were partying a lot. I was the only one in my circle who did real drugs. All my other buddies, like they were just super, super uber popular college kids that partied every single night, drinking, chasing girls, doing stuff like that, having a good time, not like destroying their life. And I was kind of like in the background secretly destroying my life. And they would do some cocaine. We would do it together here and there, but like they could do it. And I never understood this. And they just move on with their life. Me, I would pretend I'm sleeping and then I'd wake back up and finish the bag. I was like,
totally. I would do that too. If you were, oh my God, especially with Coke, I would oh my God, I don't think I've ever told this story. So I had this roommate in LA who sometimes listens to the show. So she might hear this. She lived upstairs in like a loft that was just open. And she and I would do Coke together. And she had more because I had finished mine, of course. And she was asleep and I pretended to be asleep. And I crawled up her stairs like on my hands and knees because it was just an open loft. And I was crawling across her floor to like steal her bag. And I didn't realize that a friend of hers had come in the middle of the night and he was like laying on the floor asleep. And he woke up and saw me and like caught me. I said I was doing something else, but like they obviously knew what I was doing. But I would do that kind of stuff. Like, especially if it was coke, I was not done. I was never done. I was not done. We were getting more. I was not done.
Yeah. That's wild. They caught you.
Yeah.
They were like, no.
They did. Yeah. He opened his eyes and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. I am seeing if you two had a cigarette. Do you have a cigarette? Or something, like whatever I said, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, Jeannine, get the fuck out of here. So were you working during that time?
Yeah, I was working. I always had jobs in hospitality of some sort, whether it was like a kitchen job or a restaurant job. Yeah, I mean, that kind of fueled the stuff too, right? A lot of people,
totally
part of the industry, right? Were like that. It was nothing out of the ordinary to like drink and party Monday to Sunday. Like, it was literally, when I look back, I'm like, man, I got a good time with it and whatever. And I know everybody in the industry of serving and working in restaurants doesn't do that, but nobody said anything different about. That was the cool thing. Like, it was freaking cool. Like, man, you can't believe you guys freaking, tear it up every day of the week. Like, that's crazy. Like, people looked up to you for that, It's so weird. I'm like, oh gosh, what was I doing? But yeah, I always really had a job until I didn't. I sold cars too at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, I sold cars in Durham, North Carolina. I worked at Michael Jordan Nissan.
Okay. And sold cars? I bet you were a good car salesman. I would buy a car from you. You seem very trustworthy.
No, not really. No, I wasn't. Every day I would go when I had lunchtime, I would go and see. I never had a car too because I rented. At this point in my life, I was renting my buddy's car. He got impaired driving, a DUI. So he was like, I can't drive. And I was like, well, I don't have any wheels. So I'm like, can we come up with something? He's like, look, you pay me $100 a month and change the oil and you can rent my car. And he had like this cool looking Mustang too, like Cobra Mustang, like all tinted windows. It was cool. But I would park it in the back of the dealership lot and I would go and sleep for like 2-3 hours a day because we were out partying all night. And you'd work 12-hour shifts 5 days a week. And there was nothing to do. Like, there's nobody buying a car on a Wednesday at 10 in the morning when it's raining.
Right.
So I would go and sleep. And eventually, I never even got fired from that job. Well, they're hard jobs to get fired from. But they took drug tests too. I remember when I first got a job there, you had to do a drug test. And it was a mouth swab. My buddy got me a job there. And he's like, dude, it's a mouth swab. And I was like, so I went online and I bought like this stuff that was like supposed to coat your mouth with drugs. Or not with drugs, with something else. So when they did the swab, and I'm like, I told my buddy, because my buddy was really high up there and he was a good dude. He was not into this crap at all. And he was a really good dude and he stuck his neck out for me to get this job. I told him, I'm like, dude, I don't know, like, because I'm into stuff. He knew what I was up to. And he's like, I don't know, just try it out, whatever, And so my girlfriend and I at the time, we went out the night before I was supposed to do this drug test. We went to, what pharmacy is it? Walgreens, probably. We go to Walgreens and we get the canister, like the 32-point drug test thing. And like, this thing lights up like a Christmas tree. and she's like, well, what are you going to do about the job interview tomorrow? And I'm like, dude, I read some stuff on these tests and they're just not very accurate. There's so much that can go right. I said, look, but the one thing I was kind of feeling a little bit embarrassed about is like, I think that the results were instant. So like the person administering the test could like tell. So I was like, if they find out right then and there, like I'll look like a bozo for a minute and then hopefully I can just move on with my life. But no, it didn't even come back positive, which was wild.
Oh, really?
So I like drank.
So whatever you did worked.
I guess, or those supposedly at the time, those tests were just not very, like they were looking
accurate.
For THC or something. Yeah. They just weren't the most accurate type thing. So it could have been a mixture. Maybe this stuff worked, but my mouth was yellow. Like literally it was like looked yellow. It was really weird.
From the stuff that you were trying to pass the test with?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So selling cars, you've got a bunch of different jobs, you're buying pills, and then where does that go from there? How do we graduate to the next level?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything was still kind of falling apart, but eventually I made the transition everybody does over to heroin, right? The availability. I linked up with this guy I actually knew from like grade school, like 1 through 5. I knew this fella and he was into this stuff and it was just becoming harder and harder to get the pills. It wasn't consistent. Like everybody was at this point and everybody was into them. everybody and their brother was just into the pills. Not everybody had a drug addiction problem to the pills per se, and was hooked on them physically, but a lot of people wanted to try them for the weekends. And there was a lot of, people you would just think like, what in the world are y'all doing here? You know what I mean? You'd go to the spot and it'd be like, holy smokes, like everybody's coming through. Like, this is weird. So I linked up with him. And then that's when I got into doing the heroin, and things kind of picked up a little bit there. I mean, it's all the same sort of disastrous stories over and over and over again. And then I did that probably for like a year. It was probably for like a year that I was doing that. And I ran out of gas. I just ran out of gas. I used up all my get out of jail free cards already, with money, with finances. I was getting in so much doggone trouble. I lost my apartment. I got kicked out of college. I got academic probation. I got kicked out. So that opportunity was down the drain. And this girlfriend I'd been dating for a couple years too, she was fed up with it. So she left. Yeah, I lost my place. I was back living at my parents' house. And then I got arrested again. When I got arrested again, I was staying at my parents' place. My younger brother was getting ready for school. He was like maybe 5 at this time, 6, 5, 6, somewhere around there. And my stepdad answered the door, and the cops were there. And they called me. My bedroom was upstairs. Hey, cops are here for you. It wasn't anything completely new, right? But I knew right then and there, because my younger brother was there and everybody was present, that I was just not going to be welcome back at my parents' place. So then I was in jail again. I had to get bailed out. My brother bailed me out, this girlfriend at the time. Then I stayed at this girlfriend's parents' house, like thinking her parents didn't know I lived there. And I was just like, man, what is what's next, right? Like where I live too, there's no homeless wasn't really a thing. This was Apex, North Carolina, the peak of good living. That's what it's called. It was, it was a suburb, right? And it was a small up and coming. I think it's been rated one of the best cities to live in the United States for many years in a row.
Yeah. Okay.
So there wasn't, I didn't know what that looked like. Now with the city I live in, it's bigger, and we have people who struggle with being unhoused and stuff like that. But I did not know that. So I was like, what am I going to do? I couldn't really keep up with the money it was costing anymore, the crime and everything like that. It was only a matter of time before I was going to be in a lot of trouble. So I researched methadone. Just on my own. I researched methadone, and I was like, I was going to go to the methadone clinic. I never heard of it from anybody, and I didn't really hang out with people who did drugs. Many people who they did drugs, but they weren't like everyday users like me. So I went to this methadone clinic, and I thought it was just the best thing in the world. Show up. I got $200 in my pocket. I think it was $200 to get started, and it was $12 a day. And you have to drive to this clinic, every day. It was on the other side of Raleigh from where I was. So it was about 30 minutes. I'd leave at 6 in the morning. I'd drive 30 minutes, get about 10 minutes in line. It'd be about an hour and 10-minute round trip, hand in my $12. And I thought it was good, but I was still getting messed up on other stuff. I was drinking a lot. They used to breathalyze me at the clinic because they could smell the booze. And then if I had if I blew on their thing, they wouldn't give me the methadone for the day. So that caused a lot of problems, because then I'd be sick. I didn't have the connections or the cash to do stuff. So I'd be sick. Sometimes I'd sleep in on Friday. I never got take home things except for Sundays when they were closed, because I never had clean urine. So I had to go every day. I never got
a take home either. Yeah, I never got a take home either. And, if you miss, that window is so limited, dude. It's like 6 to 9, that's it. And they don't care. If you're there at 9:05, you're done. You don't get your dose. Same thing. Never got the take homes. It's just a nightmare, a nightmare to get over there. I remember there was a sign on the window. I'll never forget this. I think this is actually a common phrase, but I had never seen it. When they would slam it shut, the sign said, "Lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part." And they would slam it shut. Meaning, like, if you were late. Yeah. Is that harsh? Yeah. The methadone clinic in Escondido. And so, you'd go running up. There'd be me and 3 other people running up desperately, and they would slam that window shut. And then the note would be right there. But what you mentioned, you said, that feeling of, what am I going to do when you're strung out, is such a scary, I haven't thought about that in a while, but something about the way that you said it, when you're researching and you find methadone, I remember when somebody told me about methadone too, it sounded really like my saving grace, right? Because there was a 21-day detox through methadone. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Because that constant feeling of, what am I going to do, is just so scary,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
So you're going to the methadone clinic.
Yeah, so I was going to the methadone clinic. I went to the methadone clinic for I don't know the exact amount of times. Some people have the time frames just out, didn't know it. And for me, I just guesstimate. I have no idea the exact time frames of anything in my life, but it was probably close to 10 months or so. My life was still extremely unmanageable though, because the thing with the methadone program, at least for me at the time, is I wasn't really working on anything else. I was just like, yeah, I'm addicted to heroin, to pills, to all this stuff. So now I jumped in and got methadone. They had therapy and stuff, but I would just bullshit them and say, oh, I've got to work or I'm busy. Like I didn't want to sit around and, chop it up. And I knew that they weren't going to really kick me off. They would just give me a stern talking to. They wanted the cash, right? They want to get paid. I don't blame them. And that's kind of how it went. I wasn't, but the other side is for me, I wasn't really pursuing anything different. I was kind of operating the same way, miserable, even though I was on the methadone. I remember I went to Florida one time on a trip and I had to get this thing transferred down there. Oh my gosh. I mean, there must have been 1,500 people at this place. So armed security and everything. It was a lot different methadone world than the little one I lived in, but it was just, I never seen anything like it. I was like, this is wild. But so I had the idea. I said, look, I got to get off the methadone. I was drinking. I was doing Xanax and I was doing cocaine and I was just miserable. I was living on my brother's floor at this time. My parents had kicked me out. This girlfriend she left me, she's like, you're a bum. I was like, yeah, you're right. So I was living on my brother's floor in his apartment. I was living there for about a year. And I was working at Little Caesars. I ended up getting fired from there. The owner of Little Caesars threw the whole pizza pan at me.
Why? What'd you do?
The restaurant was dirty or something. And I was dating this girl that was working there too. And I think it was a mix of both. He was like, oh,
okay.
It just like, I wasn't an all right employee, but I wasn't like the best employee. So, it is what it is. Right. But so I lost my job there. I didn't have any prospects. I didn't have a vehicle or anything to really go anywhere to drive. There's no public transportation in this town here. I was sleeping on his floor and we were just drinking all day. Literally, we'd get a 24 Keystone Light, 2 packs of Marlboro menthols, hang out at the pool, the apartment complex. That's when they had to buy one, get one on the Marlboro menthol. So that was just incredible. And, we used to just do that. And I did that for a bit and it was fun, but after a while I was like, shit, I came from a good place, loving parents, every opportunity to do whatever I wanted to do in life. And, a lot of people I knew and that I was partying with were kind of moving on, they were moving on. They were getting in relationships. They were starting to friggin' live. And I was pretty close to being like the last one behind, to hang out in the hometown that we wanted to leave so bad. And now I don't even, have a way to the friggin' store. And my parents had bought me a car actually for like $15,000 that I lost. I got impounded by the police,
What do you mean you lost? Okay, I have 2 questions. So did you kick methadone? Did you just get off the methadone and stop going?
Yeah. Well, I got in a pinch with the methadone, the Xanax, the beers, everything. And I got into this, I wanted to get off of it. So I called my grandparents, they lived up in Canada. They're like 65, 70 at the time. No, probably 60, 65 at the time. I call them. I say, hey, Grandpa, I said, I'm on methadone. I'm on all this stuff. He's like, you're on meth? He's like, that's blowing up houses and shit around here. I'm like, no, it's different stuff. It's different stuff. But I'm like, I need some help, And to pick up that phone and call them was hard because I was their world. You know what I mean? Like, and they don't know about any of this stuff. But my folks were tapped out resources and for helping and stuff. So I made that phone call. The next day they drove down to North Carolina. They picked me up. We went to Florida. They brought me to this detox.
Oh shit. Okay.
And so I stayed at this detox for a week. And I just went on
and kicked methadone. Ugh,
yeah, and went off
so
everything.
Painful. Okay, did they give you Suboxone to get off methadone, or was it cold turkey done?
Yeah, no, they give you Suboxone, but you have to wait.
Oh, they did. Okay, for a few days. Okay,
you had to wait 3 days, I think, 72 hours since your last methadone,
yes.
and then they give you Suboxone for like 2 days. But it's still terrible as hell after.
It's still terrible.
Yeah, the anxiety that you feel is just. It literally feels like your skin's crawling for like. I felt that way for months. I didn't sleep for months or really eat. I lost about 70 pounds that I didn't have to lose. So yeah, that was the methadone. Yeah. So I ended up getting off of that and it was friggin' it was the best thing ever. I went to the clinic and I said, hey, I want to do I want to get off of it. They said, oh yeah, no problem. 10, 12 months. I'm like, I don't have 10, 12 months. I can't keep coming out here because I had no car. I had to use my brother's every day and I had no job. So I had no money to put gas in his tank. So every day, here I am. I'm trying to do what I think is right, get my methadone, but he's pissed off because, you don't put any gas in the car. You're just staying in my place. You know what I mean? And I'm like, shit, dude, I'm in between a rock and a hard place here. Cause
yeah, totally.
so.
Yeah. No, that struggle is insanely awful. And my people listening know that struggle, most of them. You know what I mean? It's just like this. But I feel like it's good. I haven't thought about the whole like methadone struggle in a long time. It's good to remember, because it keeps me like really grateful right now. Because that is a struggle that is like such a unique kind of struggle that I do not ever want to go through again. Now, how did you get the car impounded that they got you?
That was from crimes. I went to jail one time, and then they impounded the vehicles evidence, and then they were like, you have to talk with the detective before you get the vehicle back. But by the time I talked with the detective, or I got a lawyer or something, the impound lot had already racked up, right? So they charge you $200 a day to store the car. Times 30 days is, I mean, I was struggling getting $5 together. And I was so ashamed. I felt so much shame. I didn't mention it to my folks. I mean, my folks would have been pissed, but they would have paid, if it was $2,000, we would have paid $2,000 to get the $15,000 car out,
Totally.
but that's only one of many stories to where,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Where just looking back, it's like, holy shit, man. Well, but that's addiction for you. That's addiction.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So, what ends up happening after all this?
All of this, I guess, just for time purposes, so after that, when we get back, man, the cops are all around my parents' place. They're calling me. They're like, you have a special, this is the trick they tried to use. They were like, you have registered mail. You got to sign for it. You won this contest. And you've got to...
Wait, hold on. This is when you were living back at your parents' house?
No.
And they're calling you?
No,
okay.
So
where are you living at this point?
I got back from the detox.
Okay.
With no other plan, right? So it's like I went to this detox, and then they were like, they're trying to get me to go to treatment and rehab. And I'm like, dude, I just don't. Like, we don't have the funds. We don't have 30, 40. We just spent $1,000 a day for this place, plus the hotel and everything. I mean, it was probably a $10,000 trip. And I'm like, I just can't, man. I'm like, I can't do it right now. So I went back home, slept on my brother's couch, on my brother's floor.
Okay.
So, and then my grandparents were there for a couple more days. They were staying at my parents' house. And the cops were calling. They would call and say, you got this registered mail. You got to come and pick it up. You won a prize and everything, So they were trying to catch me, but I didn't know for what. I had no idea for what. And then my grandparents came over one morning at like 5 a.m, bang, bang, bang at the door. And they were like, hey, we're getting out of here. This is crazy. Cops are around and everything. They're like, do you want to go with us? And I'm like, I've just thought about it. I kind of looked around a little bit, and like my life had really come. All I really owned in life was barely a suitcase full of clothes. That's kind of where it ended up. And, I was thinking, well, what about my friends and stuff? And I said, well, shit, dude, if you can't get your life together, you're not going to have any friends or any of that shit. So who cares, You got to get out of here. And they said, why don't you come up with us? You can stay with us in Canada for a little bit. And I just freaking packed up a few things, little bag, and I was gone.
How old were you?
What was I, 23, 20, or 22, 23?
Okay. I've also never heard of the tactic that they say you won a prize and you have to come pick something up. I've never heard that. Where are you supposed to go pick it up from? Like, where do they tell you to go?
No, well, like,
or are you supposed to call a number?
Yeah. Well, they were delivering stuff to my parents' house.
Okay.
Like but I wasn't there. So they were like, oh, is Bradley here? He needs to sign for this paperwork. But like, I'm like, dude, I told them on the phone, I'm like, trust me. Like, nobody's sending me anything, That's like that's where my life was. I was like, there's nobody sending me anything in the mail. So they were like, they were like, if you're not at this address, just provide us with your current address, and we'll
go there.
And then we'll go there and we'll deliver the package. And I'm like, hang up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. It's like Dog the Bounty Hunter type stuff,
Totally. Oh my God. That's crazy. Okay. So you go with your grandparents to Canada?
I go with my grandparents, and things are pretty good for this whole month. Like, my life's not as bad as it was. I was staying up there with them for like 8 months or something. And then I was like, oh, I want to come back and visit, And I was drinking, and I don't think I was really doing anything else then. But I want to come back and visit, right? So when I was working a job, I got a job painting and everything. I was working, I was showing up, I was doing all right. I mean, I didn't have any friends or anything. And I went to a few sober recovery meetings and, did a little bit of stuff towards getting better. But so I got on this plane, and when I got to the airport that morning in Toronto, the customs agent was asking me 1 trillion questions. I mean, I didn't even know the answers to these questions. So I was thinking, like, what's wrong with this guy?
Like, what kind of questions?
Just asking dates and times and when I entered the US last and when this and when that, just weird stuff. Like what schools I went to and all my previous addresses. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't even know any of the answers to this, like at all.
Yeah.
So I knew something was up and I should have just maybe turned around, but hindsight's 2020, right? So they put me in this back room there at the airport. They asked for all my ID. They're like, and then they're questioning me, talking with me, searched all my bags. And then after that, they're like, oh, big misunderstanding, Brad, big misunderstanding. We're going to get you right on your flight. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe there's something there, So they throw me on this flight. But in my stomach, I knew something was up. You get that feeling, right? It just doesn't go away. It's butterflies and it just sticks with you. I had a layover in New York City. So I figured, if I'm going to get arrested or something crazy is going to happen, it'll happen here. Well, nothing happened. So I was like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. I said, I guess I'm, scot-free here. And I was really looking forward to going home and seeing my folks and everything like that. I got off the plane in North Carolina and they were there.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So the cops were there. It was probably about 4 or 5
At the gate?
cops. Yeah. Right
like in the gate?
Yeah. Right when you get off the plane. Yeah.
Okay. There were 4 or 5 of them there?
Yeah. They had my mugshot and they were like, yeah, you're under arrest. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
For what?
So that's when I got charged with 3 counts. It was either 3 or 4 counts of drug trafficking. So 2 or 3 years previously to this, I sold stuff to an undercover police officer. A buddy of mine set me up. That's the whole long story short. Yeah, a buddy of mine set me up with the multiple sales to this undercover police officer.
Oh, whoa. Oh my God. Where do you know what friend set you up? Do you know who it was?
Yeah. Everything.
Because it's in the paperwork, huh? It's in the paperwork, huh?
Everything, yeah.
Oh, shit. Where's that guy now?
I don't know. No, this wasn't a good friend. This was actually like a really...
Well, obviously.
Yeah. No, this guy was actually a really bad dude. And I don't know how I got connected with him, but he was like a bad guy. And I was like...
Oh, my gosh.
I was always like a pretty good, like fairly good. I would never harm people. This guy would. He wouldn't think twice. And he had a very elaborate scheme going on back in the day. And supposedly, kind of when I look back, I remember too, he told me one time, I got busted for bringing a bunch of stuff, up to Jersey or something, or from Jersey back down here. And I should have put the pieces of the puzzle together. But this was a rough dude. But yeah, it was him. And he told me he was working at Five Guys, Burgers and Fries at the time. He's like, man, this guy at Fry, he called me up. And I wasn't even a drug dealer. This was so far out of character for me. This was just wanting to fit in the world. And pressure, like they were on me, like they were just pressuring me all the time. It was really, really strange. And he was like, this guy at Five Guys wants to gather up everything. And I'm like, it did seem kind of weird at the time, but I was like, all right, well, I guess. Okay. So I got involved, and it was.
Oh, man. So because you weren't even like a drug dealer. No. So you just did it a few times because he asked you to.
Yeah. I mean, I would do stuff here and there to like make my ends
support
meet.
Your own habit.
Yeah,
or but you weren't like trafficking narcotics.
No.
Whoa.
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So they grab you at the airport. And side note, have you ever looked that guy up? Because I'm sure you remember his name. Have you ever looked him up on Facebook or anything?
No, I never have. No.
You should. Okay, do it when we get off the air.
Yeah.
See what he's doing if he's even out. Okay, anyways, I totally would have looked the guy up by now. If you tell me his name, I'm going to look him up. Okay, so you get off the airplane and they arrest you, and then what happens?
Go to jail after that.
Well, right. And then what?
No, I mean, I went to jail. I got a $250,000 bond, so I wasn't getting out. To cut a long story short, I basically spent a year in jail. I spent a year in jail, and then we were able to come to, well, it wasn't really a plea bargain, so we tried to get 8 to 12 months. I mean, my lawyer went out and assembled all the treatment, right? Because it's not that the district attorney was trying to say I was a drug dealer, but that's the way things appeared. I mean, she was pretty decent. Like, I mean, they have a job to do, but she was pretty decent to say that's probably not the case. But my lawyer went out and got all the resources over those 8 months before we went to court. He got all the resources of files. And I mean, he laid them out on the judge's desk, and it was from one side to the other, and they were like a foot thick of all the files of all the treatment and everything, because we had to show that I was actually someone who struggled with addiction. And not the other way around. So we went in there, and my attorney was like, "Yeah, they're not going to do a plea deal. what we can do is we can plead guilty and leave it up to the judge. And I'm like, right now, like right here, right now, he's going to decide. I mean, I'm losing my mind. And it was actually really sad because after all of this, we think that we're really important to the world and we have all these friends and all this stuff. At least I did. And when I went into that courtroom at the end of 8 months, the only two people in the courtroom was my mom and my brother. And when I saw that, I was like, all that bullshit, everything I was doing to please everybody else. They friggin' like look at, Dad, this feeling and these thoughts of like, what a waste of friggin' life, man. Like you need to do something with your life. However this plays out, like do something with your life because this show for everybody else, dude. Nobody even cares. They don't care about you or where you're at, so that was one thing. And then we go and we're pleading guilty. I remember it like it was yesterday. The judge, it's almost 5 o'clock. It's like this guy's taking off for the weekend. I'm like, he's not going to care less if he gives me, because I was facing up to 20 years.
Oh,
so I'm like, he's not going to, he'll be fine, in his life, whatever. But he sits back in his chair, he takes his glasses off, puts them on I even have a little small pair of glasses here, but he takes the glasses off and puts them on his desk, rubs his eyes, and then he's like rocks back up in the chair. It's not like what you see on TV where it's this whole day event. I mean, this is 7 minutes from start to finish. He says 8 to 10 months, Department of Corrections. So, I mean, we got lucky. We really got freaking lucky on that one. And then I had to go back to jail, and then the deportation would take place. So what the setup here was is that I would plead guilty to all the charges. Once I pled guilty to all the charges, that would trigger the deportation. That was sort of another level of it to where they knew I was going to be kind of gonzo after that. So immigration and customs enforcement came and picked me up in Raleigh at the jail. And then I spent another 4 months down. I went to probably a dozen or more different jails, bouncing around. I mean, the whole process there is just friggin' bananas. Yeah, I spent a whole nother 4 months just waiting for a flight home. I had to see a judge, and the judge was sick about the first 9 times I went to see him. And then this one guy was like, they have a law library here. I was like, okay, I'm not a lawyer. He's like, no, there's a template. He's like, there's a template. If you want to go home, you can waive your right to see the judge. And I was like, really? So I went and filled out this template, and like 3 days later, I was on a flight home. I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me about this 3 months ago?
Okay. So this whole time you were never a U.S. citizen. You've been a Canadian citizen the whole time.
Yeah. So I had a green card, like a permanent residency card.
Okay. Whoa. So they deported you. Damn. What year was that?
That was when I got arrested was 2010. Then I would have been a year later, around 2011. January 10 was the day. I mean, that's the day I could consider my sober date. That was the date where it was another important thing during that day because I had this girlfriend, the one I knew right when I got out of rehab, and we were together for years after that. And she was an incredible human. She was coming to pick me up at the airport. There's people drive around the airport and pick you up. You can't really stop. They're on you like, get out of here, So she was picking me up, but right when they were handcuffing me, I could see out of a corner of my eye her drive by, and she just had this smile from ear to ear. And it just was like this sad, because she didn't see me. She didn't notice me. She was happy. I'm guessing she was happy that we were going to connect again. And I just friggin' made a commitment to myself. Like, the crap's over, man. Like, it's enough of this stuff, dude, because it was just day in and day out of disappointing people, disappointing myself, coming up short, telling lies. And I just kind of made a commitment, and I had a lot of time to think. When I went to jail, and I set 2 goals while I was in jail. I want to get a German Shepherd, and I want to be an addiction counselor. I got a German Shepherd, and I went back to school when I got back here to be a counselor, and I worked in a youth treatment center as a clinical caseworker for 6 years before I kind of started all my podcasting and all that stuff.
So your sobriety date is when you get off the plane in North Carolina, when they grab you. You never drink or use again?
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. So it's 1-10-10 is your date?
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool date.
Yeah, I didn't even...
Mine is 1-15-15.
Oh, wow.
I think that's why I noticed, because that's how I think of mine. So yeah, yours is 1-10-10. That's a cool, good date.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, right? So you never drink or use again. What happens when you get to Canada? So when you were in jail, did you start going to like 12-step meetings or anything? Like, how did you?
Well, there was 12-step. I already had the fundamentals. I mean, 12 months in the residential program. I knew what I needed to do to get better. I had an idea.
And what was that? What did you do to get better in jail? And then when you got out and you were in Canada, like what did your recovery look like in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, I got plugged in when I was in jail with the old timers, with the old boys. And we used to just kick it. We used to play cards and we talk about life. And I mean, a lot of people think people in jail are maybe bad. And I mean, people have done bad things, but like there's a lot of people with some wisdom, some good stuff. I used to read a ton of self-help books. You get plugged into some Celebrate Recovery work guides. I'll get plugged into 12-step meetings, go to church. I mean, you're going to go to church. You're going to do whatever you can do to, move a little bit when you're in jail. So those were all extremely helpful things. When I got out, I mean, it was just one foot in front of the other. It was slow. I was learning how to open a bank account, how to get another job. I got a job. I got back into school. I did that, I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other, sticking to myself for the most part, going to 12-step meetings, just doing what I needed to do to be a better person, just to stay sober in the meantime. The days added up. The days freaking added up, right?
Well, now it's been almost 14 years in a few months. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I got 3 kids now and a wife. So.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Okay, so you get off the airplane, you stay clean and sober. And you go back to school to be a counselor.
Yeah.
And then when do you meet your wife? How do you meet your wife? How do you do all that stuff?
Yeah, I met her there. She worked at the rehab too.
Okay.
And she used to work there too. Yeah, that's how we met.
Okay.
And then, my oldest daughter just turned 6, actually on the 5th. And then I have a 3-year-old. Then I have like what is he, like 20 months old now? Yeah. So, and we have a dog too, German. We have another German Shepherd. My first one we had to put her to sleep, but now we have another one. So that's like 1.5. And it's debatable who requires more work, the dog or the kids. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that from him right now, actually, my little pug. Wow. Okay. So what has been like your primary source of recovery over the years? 12-step? Like,
no,
or
I don't
self-help stuff or, okay.
Yeah, I don't do 12-step. I'm not opposed to it. When I worked at their treatment center, we used to go and stuff here and there, and I still have some books and stuff that make sense to me for where I'm at today. My whole thing is my thing today is not necessarily staying sober. It's about just being the best person I can be, giving back and helping others, doing what I can. If I can keep that in line, then I'm not worried about, going back to the way I used to live. I just do everything completely the opposite of what I used to do, and I land somewhere. And I try to be a good person, and I try to just develop every single day in so many different ways, and just try to stay with that, and working with my podcast and with my community of Sobermotivation. I'm surrounded. I host groups with people. I'm connected with sober people all day, every day. You know what I mean? That's what I've done and since I started once I quit that job, I started sort of the Sobermotivation thing for the last 6 years. That's what I do full time is working in this space to help people, carry the message forward, hearing all the stories, your incredible podcast. And I interview a bunch of people on my podcast and hear all the stories, and getting connected. It's just so doggone helpful.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about Sobermotivation. So when did you start it, and explain to people listening exactly what it is?
Yeah. I started the whole dates thing. I'm not good at. I'm on a ballpark 4 years ago.
Okay.
4 years ago. Now we've grown over to like 1 million followers, which is pure insanity because I was talking with somebody else and everybody's like, well, how do you do that? And I'm like, look, my wife was my first follower. She was it. That was all we had for like 2 weeks. For this vision.
1 million not, you mean across all platforms?
Yeah,
like you're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
Yeah, most people on Facebook. Facebook's like 750, and then Instagram's.
Oh, I don't even follow you guys on Facebook. Only Instagram.
Yeah, it's called Sober is Cool.
Well, good. I'm glad you said that.
Sober is Cool on Facebook, but you'll notice the logo is the same. Yeah, so then which is just insanity. But I mean, the whole idea of the network, the whole idea of everything, the platform, the network was to give people a voice, give people a platform to share their story, which might not have it otherwise, and get some people, see if people will show them some love for it and share stories, normalize sobriety. People come from all walks and they find a way out, and let's talk about it. And the people who got 1 day sober, let's celebrate them. And the people who got 20 years, celebrate them. Some people try to give me slack for people with 30 days. I'll share anybody's story. It doesn't matter to me because there's value. I've seen people with 1 or 2 days save somebody's life countless times,
Yeah.
So, and I just believe in the power of a story, and that's what the whole podcast is about. And in the podcast, I think we're almost at a year, actually. October 15th will probably be 1 year for the podcast. We're almost at 100 episodes, and we just crossed over 600,000 downloads. The response has just been incredible. It's blown me away. I put a story up the other day. I didn't think anybody would listen. I'm surprised that they do, so
Yeah.
I make everything about the community, the collective. It's not about me. If I could do a podcast and not even be on it, I'd be happy with it. But I had a mentor of mine, because I did the network, the community, the accounts for like a year and a half, and I never even wanted to be a part of it. I just wanted to be about the people. But I had this mentor of mine, like probably around when I started a podcast. He said, "Brad, every ship needs a captain, or else it's only going to get so far." So he's like, "What's your vision?" And I'm like, "Well, I want it to be, I want it to be the biggest. I want it to be inspiring for people." He's like, "Well, then you might have to start steering the ship, So I said, "All right, well, let's give it a go and check it out." So that's kind of when I started doing that and jumped into things. And yeah, I honestly couldn't be more grateful. People support the show and support the stuff. And I've made countless connections with people all over the world. I mean, it's just been beautiful. It's been incredible. Blows me away every day. It really does. And just how many people that it's able to help. And it's not me helping people. People message me, "Brad, you help me." It's not me. It's the other people sharing their stories. It's the brave people sharing their stories that's helping, you know what I mean? All of us, right? But yeah, that's a little bit, I guess, about Sober Motivation.
No, that's so cool. I love that. I didn't know you'd only had the show for a year. I thought it had been longer, because it is already very established. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. We'll see what the next year brings.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned self-help books. What is your favorite self-help book? And I know that's going to be really hard to narrow down.
Yeah.
But like, it could be recent or over all the years, or like, what are you reading right now? Something in that area.
Let me see my collection here. I don't know. It's really hard to pick. One. I mean, the Four Agreements is good. Right now I'm kind of more into like finance things. I like learning about that. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't terribly hate the Gary V books too. Crush it. I mean, if you're into like content creation,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, or wanting to do something, or checking out his books. There's another book I'm reading right now. It's called Burn the Boats. So it's kind of about getting rid of plan B and going all in on plan A, but not really getting.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but not really getting rid of plan B and going in on plan A. It's kind of weird, right? Like there's a strategy to it. It's not just like, okay, burn the boats, quit your job, friggin' do everything, let's go. It's like have a plan, but be pursuing where you want to be in life. So that I'm really enjoying that. So it's just from a Shark Tank. I can't even think of the fella's name right now. He would kill me. But it's
Mark
from
Cuban.
No. This guy only did one. I think he only did a couple episodes.
Oh, okay.
Of it, because there wasn't like a big time shark. But yeah, it's from him, and that's good. But yeah, there's so many out there that The Outliers was a good read like 2 years ago. But yeah, lots.
I love that stuff. I consume a lot of that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's a really big part of my recovery as well. Cause like I'm a 12-step person, but I wasn't going to meetings very often, especially like during COVID and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think consuming all like the self-help stuff, and then obviously like the podcast, helps with that kind of stuff. And what does your relationship look like now with your parents and your brother?
Yeah. So I got the two brothers. Things are great. I mean, they come visit up here. I feel for them because they've always got to make the trip. But they come.
Oh, right, because you're banned. Okay, wait. Actually, that was not my last question then. Can you ever get unbanned?
I mean, you can. I'd have to get a lawyer. You can get a pardon from the governor or the president. A governor of a state or the president of the United States, too.
Shit.
If I ever maybe I don't know, maybe one day I'll make a big enough of an impact that they'll be like, hey, maybe we'll give him another chance. But either way, I'm good. Like either way, it was the best thing that ever happened in my life. Hands down. I mean, the best.
Okay.
I mean, getting a job and everything, convicted felon at 18 in the United States, going to college, they don't want you going to school. At least that's how it was then. Getting a job. I got turned down from BK, from McDonald's, from Wendy's, from checking. I have a felony on my record. Up here, I move up here. I have no criminal record. My credit restarted.
Oh, right.
I don't even have a speeding ticket.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow you.
No.
Oh, I mean, obviously, but I don't think I ever thought about that. So up there, you have no record. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what's so weird? I interviewed another Canadian guy who got banned from the United States, but he did get a pardon for humanitarian work. He like rode his bike
Ryan,
across.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah. Have you interviewed him on your show?
I haven't had him on my show, but I've talked with him. I've talked with him a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Or you could get a lawyer and try to see it, right? But see, the problem is I had to plead guilty going back. I had to plead guilty to all that stuff to make the whole thing pan out. So when I did that, I pled guilty to like a lot of stuff that they would be like, oh, that's bad. He's a bad guy. But it was a friggin' blessing in disguise. Like it was tough when I go through it. But when I look back, like, man, it was just incredible. It was just beautiful, because I had to get a fresh start of everything. I got to start over from where I wanted to start over, which was from nothing. But, starting over from nothing is sometimes better than starting over from in the negative, already having so much against you, so. Oh, yeah. Some of my parents too, though. Yeah, things are great with them. My dad lives just down the street from me now.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. And then my brother lives here actually now too. My twin brother lives here. My younger brother, he's an American. He lives in North Carolina. I don't know if he's ever going to leave, and my folks live there, but things are great. I mean, things change in relationships when you accept accountability for your behaviors and you're willing to do something about it. And that's what I was able to do, I had to change my life. My folks were good. They wanted nothing but the best for me. I just didn't make it very easy on them to get that done, right? So, but yeah.
So if someone's listening and they have a record and they're in the same spot but they're not able to just move, and they're in the same situation, young, felony record, feeling hopeless, what would you say?
Well, I think things have changed since now. I mean, now I think from what I'm hearing from people, there's more opportunities. I would hope. I'm not there anymore, but I would hope that it's not as cut and dry as it was before. What I would say to them, though, is start your own business, because my customers don't ask me for my criminal record.
That's true. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, if you could. I mean, there's some things you're not going to be able to, but there's a lot of people I know that have different backgrounds, and if nobody's going to give them a shot at doing what they want to do, then they build what they want to do, build it into something. You could try something like that out, but connect with other people. I mean, networking is going to be everything anyway, right? So network with people, find people. Don't look at everything as like a job, but just network and get to know a lot of people. That's what's helped me get to where I am today. Networking, helping others, giving back. A lot of people enter relationships with their hand out, enter relationships with the question of what can you do to help someone else instead of what's always in it for us. Me operating like that has helped me out in business and life and everything, because I truly don't need to get stuff from other people to be able to help them. And if I help them and I never get anything back from them, I'm like, that's great. I love it. I'm just happy to be able to be in a position to be able to help people. So, but it's tough. Yeah. It's a tough spot.
Yeah. No, it is. But you're right. Starting a business, because like my husband and I both have records. And when we started our studio, nobody knew that. You know what I mean? Well, actually people do, because I talk about it, but it didn't hinder me from having the business.
Yeah.
You're right. You can just start your own,
Yeah.
As long
as you do good work, like if you have a wild record and you're still acting like that, starting a business, the people you're serving are probably going to eventually find out you're still acting like that and not be interested. But if you have the record and you've made changes in your life and you're not living like that anymore, and you start a business and people see you as who you are now, like you're rocking and rolling, then you're good to go, right? And get at it. So that's cool.
Yeah. No, that was very helpful. So where can everybody find you? Is it because you said it's Sober Motivation across most platforms, but Sober is Cool on Facebook?
Yeah, it's called Sober is Cool on Facebook. Some guy took Sober Motivation, had this big vision for it, because I was only on Instagram. So he kind of went on Facebook with this thing like a few years ago, before I was like, maybe I should do a Facebook. And then he fizzled out. And I messaged him. I'm like, yo, can I just get the handle? Because this guy, me and him talked. He knew this was my thing. And I'm like, since you fizzled out, can I get the handle? And he wouldn't give me the handle. So I had to make it. Yeah. So I had to make it Sober is Cool on Facebook. I was like, yeah.
Oh, that's so annoying. Because I'm sure some of your people just follow that one, even though he's not doing any, you know what I mean?
And there's this
look it up.
Yeah, and there's a big spam group. There's this group that has 150,000 people, and they use my logo, and I think it's called Sober Motivation, a Facebook group. That's not it. So if you see
wow. Okay.
You see that, and everybody messages me like, yo, these guys are scamming people. They do. It's like people, I don't know where they're from, but they're not from Canada here. and they're scamming people and stuff. Like, I don't know. I get it, but like, there's nothing I can do. Facebook, I can say what? Like, oh, they took my logo. Well, like Facebook they don't care. So if you end up in that group and people are showing pictures of this babe that's got 20 days sober that's looking to date, like that is not real. So, and it's not me.
Okay.
But that's what they do. They post up people that are like, oh, I just got 30 days. I'm ready for a relationship, and it's like, and then all these guys just message, probably get roped into this, but I can't protect everybody, right? So this is a public service announcement. It's not me doing it. That's it, though.
I cannot. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you were kind of getting over a cold, so I appreciate so much that you made the time for me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully we did all right.